Jack Miller had always trusted the ocean. For more than 20 years he had made his living beneath the waves, guiding research expeditions and salvaging forgotten wrecks from the sea floor. He had dived through coral labyrinths, swum beside hammerhead sharks, even braved the swirling storms that tossed ships like toys across the Atlantic. The ocean was dangerous, yes, but never treacherous. He respected its power, and in return, it seemed to respect him back. That night off the coast of Bermuda, the sea felt different. As the research vessel drifted silently above the black waters, the world around Jack was unnervingly still. The crew had joked earlier that it was the calm before the storm, but the sky was clear, the stars bright, and the wind non-existent. The ocean looked like a sheet of obsidian glass, undisturbed by wave or ripple. When Jack leaned over the side of the boat and gazed into the water, it was like staring into a mirror that swallowed light. He had been diving long enough to recognize when something felt wrong, and everything about that night whispered that he should turn back. He didn't. The sonar operator had detected something unusual hours earlier, an object moving beneath the ship at a depth far beyond the usual migration paths of whales. It was massive, the reading suggested, but inconsistent in shape. It wasn't a submarine, wasn't a school of fish, wasn't anything that matched the familiar signatures they had cataloged for decades. The object had drifted in and out of the sonar's field, almost as if it were circling them. Curiosity overruled caution. Jack suited up. The hiss of oxygen filled his ears as he descended into the still water. The world above shrank into a faint glow, swallowed quickly by the dark. His flashlight cut a narrow cone of pale light, illuminating particles that swirled like snow in the water column. He had been here 1,000 times before, but tonight each flicker of movement on the edge of his vision tightened the knot in his stomach. He steadied his breathing and checked the sonar beacon strapped to his wrist. The signal was faint but steady, pulsing somewhere below. At first, nothing was out of the ordinary. Small fish darted across his light. An eel slithered out of a crevice, its body shimmering before disappearing into the black. The seabed stretched beneath him, uneven but familiar. He drifted deeper, following the beacon. The water pressed against him with a weight that only divers understand, that strange awareness of the miles of ocean above your head. His heartbeat, amplified inside his helmet, kept rhythm with the hiss of his breath. Then the sonar tone changed. A new reading appeared, larger, closer. The object was moving again, slowly, deliberately. Jack stopped mid-descent. His body froze as his eyes scanned the darkness beyond his light. He adjusted his torch, sweeping it across the abyss, but the beam dissolved into black nothingness. The reading pulsed again, stronger this time, and his gut twisted. Whatever it was alive. The first thing he saw was a glimmer. 2 faint orbs, impossibly large, floating in the dark. At first he thought it was some kind of reflection, maybe his equipment catching the light. But then they blinked. Slowly. Methodically. His breath caught in his throat. They weren't reflections. They were eyes. Enormous, unblinking eyes fixed directly on him. Jack's instincts screamed for him to surface. Every part of his training told him to retreat, to abort the dive, to escape. But he didn't move. He couldn't. Something primal rooted him in place, as though those eyes had hooked into the core of his being. He felt the weight of them pressing on him, studying him, judging him. The seconds dragged into minutes. The creature didn't advance, but it didn't retreat either. It simply watched. Jack tightened his grip on the flashlight, though he knew how useless it would be. Slowly, almost against his will, he raised the beam toward the eyes. For the briefest instant, the light caught the edge of something massive, an outline so large his mind struggled to comprehend it. Scales, ridges, or maybe something stranger slipped just beyond the edge of illumination. And then it moved. The water shifted around him with a force that rippled through his body, a pressure wave that nearly knocked the regulator from his mouth. The eyes vanished into the abyss. Jack's lungs burned as he realized he had been holding his breath. He exhaled sharply, the bubbles rising in a frantic stream toward the surface. He wanted to believe it was over, that the thing had lost interest and disappeared. But then, from the blackness below, the sonar on his wrist erupted into a rapid, high-pitched alarm. The object wasn't retreating. It was rising. The sonar screamed in Jack's ear, a shrill alarm that meant only one thing. The object was ascending fast. His pulse thundered louder than the hiss of his oxygen. He angled his flashlight downward, but the light was swallowed whole by the black water. He couldn't see it, not clearly, but he could feel it. The water shifted with a rolling vibration that made the straps of his gear hum against his chest. Something was coming up from the deep. His training snapped into focus. Stay calm. Breathe. Do not panic. But the voice in his head sounded smaller than the roar of fear pounding through him. He kicked upward, steady at first, then faster. His bubbles rushed toward the surface like an urgent trail of breadcrumbs. But the sonar wouldn't stop screaming. The creature was faster. Jack risked a glance at his depth gauge. He was still far from the safety of the boat. Too far. His flashlight flicked across the abyss one more time, and for an instant he caught the faintest suggestion of movement. A ripple of something vast. A ridge or fin that stretched farther than his beam could reach. It was like shining a torch on a mountainside at night. You only saw fragments, but you knew the whole was enormous. The water around him pulsed with another surge of pressure. It wasn't just moving, it was rising directly beneath him. Jack pushed harder, lungs burning, but the oppressive darkness seemed endless. That was when the radio in his helmet crackled to life. "Jack, do you copy? Your vitals are spiking." It was Marissa, the ship's comm officer. Her voice was steady, calm, but laced with concern. He tried to answer, but his words came out ragged. "Something's down here. It's following me." There was a pause, then, "Sonar confirms. Object is, Jack, it's massive. Just get to the surface. We'll prep recovery." Her words only fueled his panic. The ship could see it too. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't his imagination. The sonar on his wrist shrieked again. The creature was nearly on him. Jack's instincts screamed to look down, but his survival instinct screamed louder. "Don't." He kept his eyes forward, fixed on the faint glow above that marked the surface. His legs burned as he kicked, his arms cutting the water like blades. Then something brushed against him. It was subtle at first, like the edge of a current. Then stronger. The water itself seemed to shift around him as though displaced by something colossal passing beneath. His body twisted involuntarily as a shadow blocked out the faint glow from above. Jack looked up just in time to see darkness swallow the light. Something, no, someone, was between him and the surface. For a heartbeat he thought it might be a second diver. A shape hung in the water above him, humanoid in outline. But as his flashlight flicked upward, the truth froze his blood. The figure wasn't human. Its limbs were too long, its movements too smooth, its skin glistening with scales that shimmered like oil. The eyes, enormous and glowing, locked on his once more. It wasn't just one creature, it was two. One massive shape rising beneath him, another suspended above, cutting him off from the surface. Jack's chest tightened. He was trapped. The smaller figure tilted its head, studying him with unsettling intelligence. Bubbles slipped from Jack's mouth as he realized this one wasn't just watching. It was approaching. Slow, deliberate, curious. Its hand, or what resembled a hand, extended, webbed fingers spreading wide. "Marissa!" Jack rasped into the comm. "There's something else. It's not alone." Static. The line went dead. The figure drew closer, its glowing eyes reflected in the glass of his helmet. Jack fumbled for the flare clipped to his belt, yanked it free, and snapped it to life. Red light burst into the water, painting the abyss in a bloody glow. For the first time, he saw it clearly. The smaller creature was humanoid, yes, but wrong in every detail. Its torso rippled with muscle, its skin a mosaic of iridescent scales. Gills flared along its neck, pulsing with each breath. Its face was both alien and familiar, features twisted into something caught between man and monster. The webbed hand reached closer, almost brushing the glass of his mask. Jack ignited the second flare and slashed it through the water. The sudden burst of light startled the creature. It recoiled, twisting in a blur of motion before darting back into the dark. But the flare's glow also revealed something else, something far worse. Beneath him, the larger creature had surfaced enough to show its form. Jagged ridges ran along its spine, glowing faintly with bioluminescence. Its head, massive and angular, broke into view. Rows of teeth, rows upon rows, gleamed as its jaws flexed open. The water vibrated with a low, guttural sound that Jack felt in his bones. The monster wasn't curious. It was hunting. The flares sputtered in his hands, casting erratic flashes across the abyss. Jack kicked desperately toward the surface, but the smaller creature darted back into his path. It circled him like a predator herding prey, moving with impossible speed. Behind him, the larger beast's bioluminescent ridges glowed brighter, like warning lights in the dark. Jack's lungs screamed for air. His legs felt like lead. Above him, the faint outline of the ship shimmered in the water, so close, yet impossibly far. He reached upward, stretching, clawing toward the light. Then everything went silent. The sonar stopped. The water stilled. Even his own breathing seemed muted, as though the ocean itself had gone silent. He turned his head, slowly, dreading what he would see. The smaller creature was gone. The larger one was no longer beneath him. Instead, it was behind him, and he felt it move. Jack froze. The water around him pressed tighter, the weight of the ocean itself becoming a prison. He didn't need to turn. He could feel it. A presence loomed behind him, vast and alive, displacing the sea with every shift of its colossal body. But instinct betrayed him. Slowly, trembling, he twisted his head just enough to glance over his shoulder. There it was. The creature's eye filled his vision, a perfect sphere of glowing amber, large as a dinner plate, unblinking. For an instant, it was all he could see. The iris contracted, a ripple of light shimmering across it, and he realized with terror that the thing was studying him. His body screamed to swim, to flee, but his limbs locked. He was no longer a diver, no longer a man with years of training. He was prey caught in the gaze of a predator older than civilization. Then, in a sudden burst, the beast moved. Its massive body swept past him, the current nearly tearing his mask from his face. The flare flickered and died, plunging him into blackness once again. Jack's hands fumbled for his backup torch, and when he flicked it on, the beam cut across something impossible. A wall. Not a natural one. The stone surface rose from the ocean floor, covered in carvings worn by centuries, lines that spiraled and crossed in geometric patterns. It wasn't just a cliffside or a rock formation. It was architecture. His chest tightened. He had stumbled onto ruins. The monster circled back, its ridged spine glowing faintly like molten veins in the dark. It kept its distance now, not striking, almost as if herding him closer to the structure. The smaller humanoid figure appeared again, darting along the wall with movements too precise to be chance. Its webbed hand pressed against a crack in the stone, and the water around it pulsed with strange vibrations as though responding. Jack realized too late. He was being led. Surface. I need surface, he gasped into the calm. But static hissed back, nothing else. His flashlight caught more carvings as he drifted closer, depictions of creatures half human, half fish, wielding tridents, guarding doorways. In one carving, a towering beast with jagged ridges along its back was shown devouring ships, its mouth open in a grotesque grin. The image looked exactly like the monster circling him now. A wave of nausea gripped him. Were these ruins the record of an ancient civilization, or a warning? Before he could pull away, the humanoid figure darted forward, closing the distance between them. Its hand pressed against his chest plate, not violently, but firmly, as though commanding him to stay. Jack's light flicked across its face. For the first time, he saw its eyes up close. Human-shaped, yet glimmering with unnatural brilliance, their pupils narrow slits like a predator's. It blinked. And in that blink, Jack swore he saw recognition. He tried to shove it away, but its grip was like iron. It pulled him lower, guiding him toward a fissure at the base of the wall. The crack was wide enough to enter, a shadowed mouth leading deeper into the abyss. "No, no, I'm not going in there," Jack muttered, though the only one who could hear him was himself. His heart hammered. The ruins weren't just ruins. They were a doorway. The humanoid pulled harder, and Jack fought back, kicking with all his strength. The movement must have provoked the larger beast, because suddenly the water shook with its guttural roar. The sound rattled his bones, vibrating through his skull until he thought his head would split. His mask fogged with his own frantic breath. The sonar on his wrist chirped erratically, unable to measure the thing's sheer mass. Jack wrenched free of the humanoid's grasp and shot upward. His flashlight beam whipped wildly, catching glimpses of stone columns stretching higher than he could see, broken statues half buried in coral, inscriptions that vanished into the dark. Whatever this place was, it wasn't natural. He didn't make it far. The water around him convulsed as the larger creature surged upward, its head breaking into the light of his torch. Rows of teeth gleamed, each one longer than his hand, set in jaws wide enough to crush him whole. Its roar this time was different, not a warning, but a strike. Jack twisted away, but the force of the current slammed him against the stone wall. His shoulders screamed with pain as the air was nearly knocked from his lungs. His torch slipped from his grip, tumbling into the abyss below. Darkness swallowed him once again. His mind spiraled. He was disoriented, spinning, lungs straining for breath. But then, through the blur, he saw something. A faint glow ahead. Not the bioluminescent ridges of the creature, not the cold glow of its eyes. This was different. The fissure at the base of the ruins was glowing, a pale, eerie blue. The water seemed to ripple out from it like waves of energy, drawing everything closer. The smaller humanoid was there, waiting, gesturing frantically for him to follow. Jack hesitated only a second. Stay outside, and the beast would tear him apart. Go inside, and he risked vanishing into a place no one had ever escaped. Either way, he was out of time. He kicked toward the fissure. The monster lunged, jaws snapping shut inches from his fins. A rush of current yanked him forward, pulling him into the glowing crack. And then, silence. The roar of the beast vanished. The weight of the ocean lifted. He was no longer falling through endless black. Instead, he was inside something vast, illuminated by the same strange blue glow. The last thing he saw before his vision blurred was a colossal chamber stretching into darkness, its walls carved with symbols that pulsed like living veins. Then his oxygen alarm screamed. Jack was running out of air. The alarm shrieked in Jack's helmet, a relentless beeping that cut through the eerie stillness. His oxygen gauge blinked red, a countdown to suffocation. Panic clawed at his chest, but the world around him stole his breath in a different way. The chamber was unlike anything he'd ever seen. It wasn't a cave in the natural sense. It was built. The walls soared higher than the beam of his torch could reach, covered in carvings that shimmered faintly in the bluish glow. Symbols wound together in spirals, depicting figures locked in battle with beasts that looked far too much like the monster outside. Jack floated there, suspended in water that felt different, lighter. It didn't push against his suit the same way the ocean did. It was as though he'd crossed into a pocket of some other reality, a place where the rules of the sea had been bent. The humanoid figure hovered near him, eyes glowing softly in the chamber's light. It raised a hand, pointing deeper into the structure, urging him forward. Jack shook his head. He was nearly out of air. He tapped the gauge on his chest plate, then pointed upward, trying to signal that he needed the surface now. The creature's gaze didn't waver. It pointed again. Harder this time. Jack cursed, a string of bubbles escaping his regulator. His instincts screamed to swim up, to find any way back to his boat, his crew, the sky. But there was no way back. The fissure he'd been pulled through was gone, sealed by solid rock as though it had never been there. He was trapped. His only path was forward. Forcing down his panic, Jack swam deeper into the chamber. The carvings grew more detailed. He passed towering statues with half-eroded faces, their eyes inset with stones that pulsed faintly like dying stars. One statue depicted a humanoid figure crowned with coral, holding a spear pointed downward at a writhing sea beast beneath its feet. Another showed the beast triumphant, its jaws clamped around a sinking ship. The message was clear. This chamber told the story of a war. But who had built it? And who had won? Jack's torch flickered as he reached the far end of the chamber. There, set into the wall, was a massive door of stone. No hinges, no handles, just a slab covered in glowing glyphs. The humanoid swam to it, pressing its palm against the center. The glyphs flared brighter, spreading outward like veins of fire. Jack's stomach knotted. Whatever lay beyond that door, it wasn't meant for him. He shook his head again, tried to back away. But the chamber itself seemed to resist him, a current pulling him toward the door. The glyphs pulsed once more, and with a groan like shifting tectonic plates, the door split open. Beyond it lay another chamber, larger still and filled with something that made Jack's blood run cold. Rows of sarcophagi floated in the water, suspended as though by invisible threads. Each one was carved with intricate designs, their lids etched with faces that looked eerily human. Some were cracked open, empty. Others glowed faintly from within, as though something still lingered inside. Jack's light swept across one and froze. Behind the translucent stone of its lid, a body lay preserved. Its skin was scaled, its face humanoid but wrong in the same way as the creature guiding him. There were dozens of them, an army in slumber. Jack's chest tightened, not from oxygen but from the terror dawning in his mind. These weren't just ruins. This was a vault, a prison. The humanoid gestured toward one of the glowing sarcophagi. Its expression was unreadable, but its movements seemed desperate, insistent. Jack shook his head violently. His regulator hissed as he spat out bubbles, trying to shout though no sound carried. No, I'm not opening that thing. The humanoid's glow dimmed. For the first time, Jack thought he saw sadness, or maybe warning, in its eyes. Then the chamber shuddered. A low vibration rippled through the walls, stirring silt from the carvings. Dust rose like smoke, swirling in the glow. The sarcophagi trembled in their places. Jack spun, dread tightening every muscle. The vibration was not from the chamber. It was from outside. The beast. It hadn't left. It was trying to get in. The glyphs on the door flared again as though reacting to the tremor. The humanoid darted forward, gripping Jack's arm with strength that made him wince. It pulled him toward a tunnel branching off from the sarcophagus chamber. Jack hesitated. His oxygen alarm screamed louder, the gauge nearly flat. He had minutes, maybe seconds, before he blacked out. But then he heard it. Through the stone, through the water, came a sound that made his blood freeze. A roar so deep it felt like the ocean itself crying out. The massive creature outside wasn't hunting anymore. It was enraged. The sarcophagi rattled violently, cracks spreading across their lids. A faint glow seeped from within, growing brighter. One of them began to open. Jack's body moved before his mind could process. He let the humanoid drag him into the tunnel. Darkness swallowed them, broken only by the flickering glow behind as the first sarcophagus split open. The last thing Jack saw before the chamber vanished from view was a clawed hand pressing against the inside of the stone lid. Something inside was waking up. The tunnel seemed endless, a throat of stone swallowing Jack deeper into the abyss. The humanoid pulled him with startling strength, darting through the dark with the fluid ease of a predator. Jack's lungs burned, every breath shallow as his oxygen alarm wailed in his helmet. The sound was maddening, a constant reminder that he was on borrowed time. Behind them, the chamber groaned with the weight of awakening. The roar of the beast outside rumbled like an earthquake, and the crack of splitting sarcophagi echoed through the water. Jack risked one glance over his shoulder, and wished he hadn't. The glow behind them flared. Through the tunnel's mouth he saw something slithering free of its stone coffin, its limbs unfolding with dreadful grace. A silhouette larger than any man, but humanoid enough to unsettle. Its eyes ignited with the same bioluminescent fire as the smaller guide, but hotter, more furious. And it was not alone. Dozens of lids cracked in unison. Jack's heart hammered. The vault wasn't a grave, it was a prison, and the locks had just failed. The humanoid jerked his arm, dragging him away before he could see more. They sped deeper until the tunnel split into two paths. For the first time, the creature guiding him hesitated, glancing down one corridor, then the other. Its glow dimmed, then pulsed again, uncertain. Jack clutched his chest plate, showing the blinking red gauge. "Air," he rasped, though the water swallowed the word. His vision blurred at the edges, black creeping in like spilled ink. He had minutes left, maybe less. The humanoid understood. Its expression hardened. With a sudden jerk, it pressed something into his hand. At first, Jack thought it was a stone, smooth and cold. But when his light hit it, the object shimmered. It wasn't rock. It was a crystal, glowing faintly with the same blue light that filled the chamber. And when Jack's trembling fingers closed around it, something changed. The crushing panic in his lungs eased. The desperate hunger for air dulled, just slightly, as though the crystal itself fed him. His gauge still blinked empty, but he could breathe again. Jack's eyes widened. What is this?" The humanoid didn't answer, only gestured for him to follow. They darted down the left corridor. The walls here were different, less polished, more jagged, as though the builders had abandoned their craft in haste. Carvings grew frantic and chaotic, scenes of fire and storm, of beasts tearing through cities, of humanoid figures fleeing into the sea. Jack slowed, brushing one carving with his gloved hand. His light revealed a figure that looked eerily human, kneeling before the massive beast he had seen outside, hands raised in supplication. Beneath the image, glyphs spiraled outward, repeating one symbol again and again. A warning, a plea. The humanoid yanked him onward. The corridor opened suddenly into another chamber, smaller than the first, but no less terrifying. Here, instead of sarcophagi, there were relics. Weapons forged of strange metals, corroded but still sharp. Masks shaped like monstrous visages. And in the center, suspended in water that shimmered with faint light, a tablet of stone. The humanoid approached it reverently, pressing its hand to the carvings. The symbols lit faintly, as though recognizing its touch. Jack drifted closer, squinting through his fogged visor. The tablet showed a city, towers rising from the sea, crowned with domes and spires. He felt a chill race through him. Atlantis? It had to be. But the rest of the carving twisted his stomach. The city wasn't thriving. It was burning. Massive beasts, identical to the one outside, tore through its walls while humanoid figures fought and fell in waves. At the bottom of the scene, a row of sarcophagi floated, identical to those Jack had seen moments ago. Above them, a single glyph glowed brighter than the rest. A seal. Jack's chest clenched as realization dawned. This place wasn't built to honor the creatures. It was built to hold them. Atlantis hadn't sunk by accident. The city had been destroyed, sacrificed, to trap the monsters beneath the waves. And now, that prison was breaking open. Before he could react, the chamber shook violently. Dust rained from the ceiling as a roar thundered through the stone, closer than ever. The great beast had found the fissure, tearing at the walls with unstoppable fury. The humanoid shoved Jack toward another tunnel, this one leading upward. Jack's body screamed for rest, his limbs trembling, but the crystal still pulsed in his hand, keeping him alive when he should have drowned minutes ago. They swam hard, but then movement. A shape blocked the passage ahead. One of the newly awakened creatures drifted into view, eyes blazing, jaws unhinging in a soundless roar. It wasn't massive like the beast outside, but it was powerful, fast, and hungry. Jack's instincts took over. He clutched the crystal tighter, and for a split second the glow surged outward, forming a brief pulse that rippled through the water. The creature staggered back, its glow dimming as if stunned. Jack stared at the crystal, breathless. "You're kidding me." The humanoid didn't wait. It darted forward, slamming its spear-like arm into the stunned creature's chest. A cloud of dark ichor spread through the water as the attacker convulsed and went still. Jack gagged behind his mask, bile rising in his throat. The humanoid turned to him, eyes fierce, gesturing sharply. "Move!" They swam past the corpse, through the narrow tunnel that slanted upward. Jack's muscles screamed, but the faint hope of escape pushed him onward. The water brightened slightly, natural light bleeding through cracks above. Then another roar shook the stone. Louder, closer. Jack looked back just as a colossal eye peered through the fissure in the wall, glowing like a lantern in the dark. The beast had found them, and this time nothing stood between it and its prey. The fissure cracked wider with a sound like the ocean itself tearing apart. The colossal eye glared into the tunnel, filling Jack's vision with a hateful alien glow. The beast's breath surged through the crack, stirring the water into violent currents that tossed him like a rag doll. His arms pinwheeled, the crystal still clutched in one trembling fist. The humanoid grabbed his shoulder, anchoring him against the rock wall. Its body glowed brighter now, pulsing with frantic energy as if burning itself out. It pointed up. Escape was close. But the beast blocked the way, its vast body shifting, stone cracking as it forced itself through the crumbling fissure. The tunnel trembled. Jagged shards rained down, one striking Jack's helmet with a sharp crack. His vision swam. He had seconds, maybe less. The humanoid pressed its forehead against his visor for the briefest heartbeat. Jack saw its eyes, twin embers of sorrow, determination, sacrifice. Then it tore free from him, darting toward the fissure with a speed Jack hadn't thought possible. "No!" Jack shouted, though no sound carried in the water. The humanoid hurled itself at the beast's eye. Its glow exploded outward, blindingly bright, a pulse of raw energy that shook the walls like thunder. The crystal in Jack's hand answered, glowing hot, searing his palm. The water convulsed in a violent surge, throwing him upward, through collapsing stone, through blinding light. He didn't remember the swim. He only remembered breaking the surface with a scream, gasping air that tasted like salvation and salt. The night sky stretched above him, littered with stars. His raft, miraculously intact, bobbed nearby. Jack clawed aboard, coughing seawater, clutching the crystal like a lifeline. Behind him, the ocean boiled. A column of light erupted from the waves, then collapsed in on itself with a deafening crash. When the spray cleared, there was nothing but black water, calm and endless, as if nothing had ever stirred below. Jack lay on the raft, shivering. The crystal still glowed faintly, its pulse now slow, quiet, like a heartbeat fading into sleep. He thought of the humanoid, the way it had fought, the way it had chosen to burn itself out to save him. He thought of the sarcophagi, the carvings, the truth of Atlantis. It hadn't been myth. It had been a warning. And the warning had just awakened. Jack stared into the horizon, trembling as the dawn's first light touched the waves. He knew no one would believe him. No one would accept that monsters older than history had been locked beneath the sea, and that one had just broken free. But the crystal in his hand proved otherwise. The question was not if they would rise again. It was when. Jack closed his eyes, exhausted, the raft drifting aimlessly across the vast Atlantic. The last thought before unconsciousness claimed him was a simple, chilling truth. The ocean had never been a friend. It had always been a prison, and the inmates were waking up. If you've been pulled into the depths with Jack tonight, imagine how many more secrets the ocean still hides, from forgotten civilizations to creatures science refuses to name. This is just the beginning. Subscribe now, because on this channel we dive deeper every week into mysteries, legends, and the terrifying unknown waiting just below the surface. And remember, some truths are meant to stay buried. Are you ready to uncover them?